माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस योगाचार्य स्तोत्र शतश्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayed Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 2, chapter entitled Hiranyakashipu, the King of Demons, text number 11. Vishnur Dvijakriyamulo Yajño Dharmamayaf Puman Devarshi Pitrabhutanam Dharmasya Chaparayanam Vishnur Dvijakriyamulo Yajño Dharmamayaf Puman Devarshi Pitrabhutanam Dharmasya Chaparayanam Vishnur Dvijakriyamulo Yajno dharmamayah puman Devarshi pitrabhutanam Dharmasya chaparayanam Devarshi pitrabhutana Matajis Vishnu Dvija Kriyamu Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dvija, of the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Kriya Mula, whose root is the performance of yajna and ritualistic ceremonies mentioned in the Vedas. Yajna, personified yajna. Lord Vishnu, who is known as the Yajna Purusha, Dharmamaya, full of religious principles, Puman, the Supreme Person, Devarishi, of the demigods, and great rishis like Vyasadeva and Narada, Pitra, of the forefathers, Bhutanam, and of all the other living entities, Dharmasya, of the religious principles, Cha, also, Parayanam, shelter, the shelter. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhayacharana Aravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The basic principle of Brahmanical culture is to satisfy Lord Vishnu, the personification of sacrificial and ritualistic ceremonies. Lord Vishnu is the personified reservoir of all religious principles, and he is the shelter of the demigods, the great pitas, and the people in general. When the brahmanas are killed, no one will exist to encourage the kshatriyas to perform yajna, and thus the demigods, not being appeased by yajna, will automatically die. Purport. Since Vishnu is the central point of Brahmanical culture, Hiranyakashipu's plan was to kill Vishnu. For if Vishnu was killed, naturally the Brahmanical culture would be lost. With Brahmanical culture lost, yajna would no longer be performed, and for want of yajna, the regular distribution of rainfall would cease. Yajnat bhavanti parjanyah. Thus there would be disturbances all over the world, and naturally the demigods would be defeated. From this verse we get a clear indication of how human society is disturbed when the Vedic Aryan civilization is killed, and the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies performed by the Brahmanas are stopped. Kalau Shudra Sambhavaha. Because the population of the modern world consists mostly of Shudras, the Brahmanical culture is now lost and is extremely difficult to re-establish in a proper way. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has recommended the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, which will revive Brahmanical culture very easily. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatiranyata. Because of the increment in demoniac population, people have lost Brahmanical culture. Nor is there a Kshatriya government. Instead, the government is a democracy in which any Shudra can be voted into taking up the governmental reins and capture the power to rule. Because of the poisonous effects of Kali Yuga, the Shastra, Bhagavatam 12:2-13 says, the government will adopt the policies of the Dasyus or plunderers. Thus, there will be no instructions from the Brahmanas, and even if there are Brahmanical instructions, there will be no Kshatriya rulers who can follow them. Aside from Satyuga, even formerly in the days when demons were flourishing, Hiranyakashipu planned to destroy the Brahmanical culture and Kshatriya government and thus create chaos all over the world. Although in Satyuga this plan was very difficult to execute, in Kali Yuga, which is full of Shudras and demons, the Brahmanical culture is lost and can be revived only by the chanting of the Mahamantra. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement or the Hare Krishna movement has been inaugurated to revive Brahmanical culture very easily, so that people may become happy and peaceful in this life and prepare for elevation in the next. In this regard, Sri Madhvacharya quotes this verse from Brahmanda Puran. Vipra yajnati moolam tu harir iti asuram matam harireva hi sarvasya moolam samyan matonripa. O king, the demons think that Hari, Lord Vishnu, exists because of the brahmanas and yajna. But factually, Hari is the cause of everything, including the brahmanas and yajna. Therefore, through the popularizing of Hari Kirtan and Sankirtan movement, the Brahmanical culture and Kshatriya government will automatically come back and people will be extremely happy. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrachatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri ISKCONNVCC Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishay Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone for today morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. The topic, as you see here, is Hiranyakashipu is, scheming and planning. And his plan is basically to kill the brahmanas. So, that's the text, and the purport also talks in that direction only. Because Hiranyakashipu's plan is that if the brahmanas are killed, then all types of ritualistic ceremonies, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, will all be stopped, and in this way Vishnu will die. So this is his plan which he is making, and he is going to order very soon all his associates to cause destruction all over the universe. Especially the Brahmanical culture, he wants to destroy that. So in a way, I would say that Hiranyakashipu is smart, as in he has caught hold of the real thing. He has understood that Brahmanical culture is the root of this entire Sanatana Dharma. And if that can be destroyed, then everything will fall apart. He has understood that. Okay, it's a very important observation. So recently, there has been a comment which was made by one Francis, they call him Saint Francis, but has become very famous in the internet. So several centuries ago, when he was here to convert and to entirely destroy Sanatana Dharma in a way, he wrote a letter in which he has made this point that it is only because of the Brahmins of India that I have been unable to convert this entire country. If it were not for them, I would have converted this whole place. And in my entire life, I managed only to convert one Brahmin. He writes like that. And this became very famous in very recent times on social media platforms. It's a very old comment. When he was there, he made it. But the point is, he also understood the same thing what Hiranyakashipu understood. He understood that this is where we have to attack. If you destroy this, everything will crumble. He has understood that. Okay. So let's discuss a little bit. Let's go into this particular topic. What actually did the brahmanas represent? And what was actually their contribution? When does one, what are the qualities to be a Brahman? When does one cease to be a Brahman? So these are the points we will stick to in today's discussion. We will go all around the place to different scriptures, etc., to discuss this particular theme. I'll begin with the Mahabharata, which I once quoted before, but that's a starting point. So in a discussion between Yaksha and Maharaj Yudhishthir, Yaksha is asking Yudhishthir several questions. And Yudhishthir is giving all one-word answers basically. By and large, it's all answer in one word. And he's asking almost 127 questions. And one of the initial questions he asks is about Brahman. He says, what makes a Brahmana divine? Divyatva. Brahman Divyatva kaise prapt kar sakta hai? What is his duty? What makes him human? And what makes him fallen? So this is one of the set of questions he asks. So Yudhishthir says it is Swadhyaya that makes a Brahmana divine. That means his learning, his study makes him divine. His tapasya is his duty. Death gives us the understanding that he is a human. Can you imagine this? That means, because a Brahmana is doing this Swadhyaya and is representing the Veda himself, the Veda personified like that, only when he dies you understand, Hare, ye bhi human tha. I mean, we read, right, so many great Brahmanas, like we see, for example, Parashurama's father, Jamadagni. What a powerful Brahman sage he was. But even he had to die one day. And then you understand, Hare, he is also human. Otherwise, as long as he is living, he is, the Divyatva is only coming out. Okay, so he says like that, Yudhishthira says, it is death that makes him human. Death gives the understanding that, Hare, he is also human. And he says, Prajalpa makes him fallen. Yudhishthira says. He says, so, maybe there is a tendency among the Brahmana to criticize others because of his, sometimes, see, this also happens because of his strong understanding of everything. He may develop this tendency to be critical of people. In fact, he doesn't use the word Prajalpa. Yudhishthira more uses the word of being very critical towards others. That makes him fallen. Because that tendency could be there, because of that purity and that Shastric knowledge and everything is equipped. He may feel, Arey, kya hai sab log? And then, he may kind of speak ill about somebody. See, it's all connected actually, if you think about it. So this is where, we wish to start. So, the Brahmana's Divyatva, was his knowledge, his study. I want to begin with that. There are many other things to actually be a Brahman, but we will start with this point of study. Because if you see the Shastra also, whenever blessing is given, the blessing is also given according to the Varna of a person. So I was reading this beautiful verse from the Ramayana. It basically says that what is the benefit of reading Ramayana? Okay, so Valmiki Muni gives different benedictions for different jatis. Look at this verse. Patandvijo va grishapatvamiyat syat kshatriyo bhumi patitvamiyat vanikjana panya phalatvamiyat janascha shudropi mahatvamiyat. So it says, this verse basically from the Ramayana, it says, if the Brahmanas read Ramayana, they will become Vidwan. That's the blessing they get. Because see, that's their interest. Right? As we saw from Yudhishthira also, it is about Swadhyaya, it is about that study. So Valmiki also says the same thing. A Brahmana who reads Ramayana, he will become Vidwan. A Kshatriya who reads, what will happen to him? He will get lot of power, Rajya Prapti. He will get in this thing. A Vaishya, he will get profit in his Vanijya, in his business. And a Shudra, he says Shudra will become very famous in his skills. Because a Shudra is about skill, right? So he'll become very famous. Somebody will say, Hare, this person, he's the best carpenter in town, or he's the best whatever, He has the best skill, the best painter, the best electrician. So it is based on that pratishtha only the Shudra runs actually. That's his That's what actually sells him in the market, literally, his pratishtha. So Valmiki has captured exactly what everybody wants. And he has given this blessing that you read Ramayana, each of you will get what you want, he says, like that. Okay. So, the thing is, so this is where we start from. Each of the varnas, they have a particular feature which they are most interested in. Like the brahmana is most interested in knowledge, kshatriya in power, vaishya for wealth, and shudra for skills. So this is what their main interest lies in. Okay, and the Shastra understands this very much, and the Shastra encourages also that okay, you cultivate this particular aspect of life. Because the Atma is eternal, but when it is stuck in this body, and by the way, this Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, it is all for the body and mind. It's not for the Atma. Right? We all know that. Vrindavan Chandra Bhagavan ki jai, Gaurnata ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, when the Atma, when it is stuck within this particular body, the Atma's nature is eternal and literally it has unlimited capacity. Okay? But though it has unlimited capacity, it only knows to do something through this body and mind. And whatever is the nature of the body and mind, what unlimited it can get through it, that is what that person tries for. Right? So a Brahmana, he wants unlimited knowledge. He is behind that. A Kshatriya wants power, more and more power. A Vaishya wants more and more wealth, and a Shudra wants more and more skill. So this is how Varnashram is designed. So it encourages, it says okay. And you cannot stop them also. So just like we see also, even in modern life we see this, right? If you see the politicians, for power, they can switch sides so easily. For somebody who is not of that mentality, we will feel, how is it possible? Till yesterday you were criticizing him, today you are sitting with him and shaking hands. Kuch sharam hai ki nahi usko? We feel like that. Because we may not have that Kshatriya mindset. But that fellow understands, Baba, power is my need. And for power, whatever is needed, we will do it. There is no shame or shyness in that. For a Vaishya, money is important. Right? We can tell that you should not do business with China, this, that. But he says that wherever money I am getting, I am going there. That's all. Don't tell me all these things. Okay? So similarly, a Brahman with knowledge. So this is and our general Sanatana Dharma, the Varnashram system specifically, it encouraged people also. It said, no problem, because they can handle it. See, everybody cannot handle it, right? Like for example, who can actually be a Vaishya? If you main topic is Brahman, but we are just touching on the other Varnas as well. So a Vaishya wants a lot of money. So who can earn a lot of money? If you ask the question, the answer is simple. One who is ready to lose some money, he can only earn money. Because there is a duality there, right? You can make money only when you are ready to lose money also. Like a Kshatriya, who can become a Veer Yodha? If you ask the question, the answer is who is ready for Veer Maran? Only he can become Veer Yodha. If somebody is afraid of death, then you cannot become only Veer Yodha. So the point is, with each of this, there is a duality also. With the knowledge of the Brahman also. The knowledge of the Brahman, what happens is, so that's why, everybody is not competent to handle that type of knowledge. That's why we sometimes say also that someone who is perhaps not of that inclination, if he is going to read too many books, hear too many things, he can actually get a bit confused. Because he may not have that particular nature in his mind especially to handle knowledge like that. To handle knowledge also you need a particular ability, right? You need that particular nature. Otherwise, person will get confused. He just wants something very simple, simply told to him. He doesn't want to complicate his intellect by understanding too many things. Okay, so depending on who you are allowed, you are encouraged to progress in a particular direction. Okay, now coming more to specifically about a Brahmana, see what was a Brahmana's contribution in society, because that is in one sense the goal of this text and purport today. Because this Brahmana had this knowledge, he was a natural guide to society. And how did the Vedic system encourage the Brahmana to guide society? Without charging them anything formally. Okay. So the essence of the Brahmana's teaching was what? It was all Nishkama only. Nothing for me. I am here just to give people what they want, what is good for them. That means, see, the Brahmana has knowledge. But the Brahmana was never encouraged to use his knowledge to manipulate people for himself. Are you getting this point? Because that was considered very bad actually. So that's why, I mean, we'll start with a negative example. Like if you see Dronacharya in the Mahabharata, we all know that how he came to teach the Pandavas and Kauravas with the prime intention of having someone capture Drona and punish him. Which is not kind of very much glorified by various commentators. They say that, hey, come on, this is not the right platform. You start teaching. You start a school with some idea that I have this enemy, I want to kill him, and for that I need several students, so I'm going to start a school. So, that's not the ideal way actually. I mean, if you see. On the other hand, if you see ideal example of a Brahmana, of Brahmanical teaching itself is agenda-less teaching. Because, so that's why, Prabhupada also in several commentaries, he talks about this, that the Brahmana would give knowledge, would give guidance without a specific charge. Okay? He would get dakshina, but dakshina is not equal to salary, because whatever you get, you survive on it. So he had that inner capacity, because once you charge a specific amount, then it becomes very difficult. Then you are literally like sold out to that person, and you have to dance to whatever he says. So the Brahmana, even ritualistic ceremonies, like, and this was always observed. So if you see in the Bhagavatam also, right from Parikshit's birth, you see this, right? The Brahmanas are invited at the time of the birth of the child to do various ritualistic ceremonies. And the Brahmanas, they are astrologers also, they know various rituals also, so they can guide. Like during Parikshit's time, they basically say, the Brahmana says, Takshagad Atmano Mrityum Dvija Putro Upasarpajat Praptasya Upasrutyaya Mukta Sangha Padam Hare. They actually tell the Pandavas that this person, this child, he will hear about his death, which will be due to the bite of a snake, and he will get rid from attachment and surrender to Krishna. Like that they tell also. Now see, every time they wouldn't tell such news also. Like we see during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birth, we see like Nilambar Chakravarti. Right, he was the astrologer, and he calculated everything, and he understood this boy is going to take sannyas, but he didn't want to spoil he didn't want to tell that to the parents at that time, that this child will take sannyas and make them feel a little bit bad, etc. So he would give knowledge as per the ability of the person to handle. See, this is Brahmanical capacity, okay? And when he would do that, he would be a very valuable tool in society, right? And especially samskaras. Ensuring that people purify their existence by performing all types of samskaras from childhood. That was a major role of the Brahmanas. That's what Prabhupada also talks about in the purport. All the ritualistic ceremonies which are there, ultimately they are meant to please Lord Narayan. And Hiranyakashipu understood, we have to stop all these ritualistic ceremonies. To stop that, first we have to kill all the Brahmanas. So that's the plan that he makes, right? So, and it is not, and Brahmanas had various roles. Like for example, if you see in the Bhagavatam, we also see examples of Brahmanas having role in terms of concern to society. Like especially we see this after when Anga Maharaj, when he departs to the forest, at that time, 3 instances are there in that chapter where the Brahmanas intervene. The first instance is that when Anga Maharaj leaves to the forest, the Brahmanas feel, Hare, what is this? There is no king only now. This fellow, he got frustrated with his son, so he just left everything and went away. At least a blind, blind uncle is better than no uncle, as they say. So even they knew that this Vena is not the ideal guy, but still they said, okay, let's try him out. Okay, they coronate him. First time they intervene. And then what happens? Then they understand, my goodness, then they are doing their Brahmanical work. Then they understand, no, this person is terrible. He is like causing so much of atrocity. So they come and Hanyatam Esha, they pronounce Hunkar, and they basically kill this person. They say that no, this fellow should be killed immediately. He is not qualified only here. Second time they intervene. And then they intervene the third time as well. Okay, so what basically happens is, after they kill him, they again go back to their own activities. And then they understand that, oh my God, without a king now all the thieves and plunderers are exploiting everybody in the society. So there's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam, 4:14-41. It says, Brahmana samadrikshanto deenanam samupekshakaha savate brahma tasyapi binna bandat payo yatha. The Brahmanas began to think that although a Brahmana is peaceful and impartial, because he is equal to everyone, it is not his duty to neglect poor human beings. By such neglect, a Brahmana's spiritual power diminishes, just as water kept in a cracked pot leaks out. So they understood that, hey, this is not correct. So the thing is, you see the role of the Brahmana. He was very much connected to society. He was not thinking that let anybody rule what I got to do. No, he was concerned. No, there should be a right person. People shouldn't suffer like this. Okay, and the third time they intervene. Okay, and this time they intervene with what intention? They have this intention. They understand. Again, this is a beautiful thing. The Brahmanas, they understand that the family of King Anga is very powerful. So if you see the verse, it comes Amoga Virya Nangasya Vamsho Rajarasher Esha Samsthatum Arhati Amoga Virya Hindripa Vamshesmin Keshavashraya. They understand that this family of King Anga is very powerful. Even though this one man, Vena, was an evil guy in this line, but there is a potency in this family to get something, to get the next descendant which is very powerful and which is, who is very dharmic. So then that is the time they intervene the third time to churn the body of this Vena, and then ultimately, Maharaj Prithu comes out of that particular thing. Okay, so the point is, you see in this story, 3 times they were intervening, okay, just to set right the administrative ruling power, right? They were not just thinking that I have nothing to do with this, let's just do our own thing. So Brahmana, if you see, his contribution is in several places, okay? But as I said, the prime thing is his complete nishkama bhavana in his teaching. He doesn't feel at all that a Brahmana doesn't teach with the intention to use the student for his own project or his own purpose. It may be a noble purpose, but still that is not encouraged. Because he is supposed to see what is good for this person and encourage him in that. Because every student is different, right? And you have to encourage everyone differently. So we see that also, like great preachers like Narada, they had a very unique strategy with every student of theirs. It was not a standardized strategy they were approaching their students. With everyone they had a completely different way of presenting things, because they understood what is good for this person. They didn't have a standard prototype to say the same thing to everyone. Like we see Narada, right? Like Dhruva he said something, to the Haryashva he said something, Prachina Parishad he said something else, Valmiki. You take all these examples, the way he addresses them. It was a completely different understanding what is good for this person. Okay, so this comes in the Gita commentary of one Sri Vaishnava scholar, Vedanta Desika. So he writes, most Vaishnava acharyas we know, in commentaries they add certain conversations, right, between Krishna, Arjuna, etc. Like Vishwanath Chakravarti adds and all these people. So Vedanta Desika, he adds this. So he says that in the 3rd chapter, when Krishna is talking about Swadharma to Arjuna, right, he's talking about Swadharma to Arjuna, he says Arjuna is asking a question. It's like an added part in the commentary. Arjuna is asking, hey Krishna, who tells me what is my Swadharma? So then Krishna says, no one tells you. If anyone says, it means he has his own agenda. You have to figure out what is your Swadharma. He says like that. Okay. It's a very interesting point put in there to indicate that teacher who is there, Krishna, who is teaching Gita, is again setting a brilliant example as a teacher, right? Krishna is, though of course Krishna had his own plan of dharma samstharpanarthaya and destroying all the demons. Krishna has come for that. But again, see, because he is the Lord, he is not dependent on anyone. He has decided to execute his plan irrespective of any help or no help from people. Okay, Krishna has come in that mood. But as far as Arjuna, Krishna is mainly telling Arjuna to fight because it is his need to do so. Okay, see, this is what I am saying, the Brahmanical way of teaching, right? He is very clear that this is good for you. It's not about, I as a Supreme Lord, Krishna has his own purpose of removing all the demons from the earth. But he is not just getting people for that when it is not their natural call to do it. I hope everyone is understanding this point, right? So he has come here, Krishna is speaking Gita to tell Arjuna that, hey, look, you have to do this. If you don't, you are finished. Your nature of Kshatriya will come out somewhere at the wrong place. In the 18th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, if you don't listen to my instructions, you will be lost. He's telling it out of a great concern as a teacher. I am telling you the principles of life, and especially as applied to you as a Kshatriya. And if you are not going to listen, you will be lost. So that concern of the teacher is there. But at the same time, there is a Nishkama Bhavana. And we see that throughout Krishna. Even at the end, he says, if you want, I'll teach the whole thing again, or whatever you want, you can do. There is a detachment in that teaching. Okay, though the teaching is very much involved, as in Krishna has, Krishna is completely involved in telling Arjuna whatever is good for him, but still he is maintaining that detachment that, okay, this fellow may not listen to me, I may have my own things which I want to accomplish, but I'm not going to pull him just for that particular purpose. I'm telling him because it's good for him, otherwise he is only going to be in trouble if he doesn't listen to what I say. Okay, so we see a very, very ideal case of, Brahmanical teaching. And when such teaching is there, then from the student side, there is that gratitude, right? Like we sing in the morning, right? Chakshudan diloje janme janme Prabhu se. So why are we saying that? We're saying that because when the teacher has given us something, which is something so valuable, but given without any personal expectation, then we feel, I should be indebted to that person. Okay, so we cannot compare this with anything else, right? This type of Brahmanical teaching, like in a modern school or college, we see sometimes that, people pay several lakhs of rupees and go and do. Because in Indian culture, we still value people touch the feet of their teacher in school, colleges, etc. But still, actually, if you see, that is a danda, that's not Vidya per se. Because Vidya per se has this particular framework where it is given by the teacher without any expectation at all. And that actually moves the student, and that actually makes that student really come up in life and bring the best of that student in his particular. This is the contribution of a Brahmana. Okay, and Hiranyakashipu understands this. And that knowledge of the Brahmana basically continuously keeps saving society. It makes a person, and that is why I'm going back to that comment of that Francis, who said, without these Brahmins in India, I would have converted this entire country. It would have been very easy for me to do. But just this 2% people, they spoiled our plan. So that was his same thought of Hiranyakashipu, right? This fellow is also saying, because he has understood that. He has understood, no, these people are selflessly standing and trying to help society, and we can't compete against these people. So that part he caught, which is very interesting. And when a Brahmana basically becomes very, so that knowledge also, the Brahman gives only to a deserving person. Like we always say this, right? Knowledge in the hands of a dangerous person is always dangerous. Like in the Ramayana we see, Ravan had knowledge of astrology also. Sometimes it is said that Ravan kidnapped Sita Devi at a particular time, Muhurta, when Sita will not be found out. He used astrology also for his own sake, nefarious acts. But then of course Jatayu spoils that and he pushes to the next Muhurta when anything lost is ultimately obtained back. Okay, so like that. Now taking the discussion further ahead, we spoke about one aspect of Brahmana till now, about his knowledge, about his swadhyaya, about his contribution to society selflessly and so on. Going further ahead, many times this question is debated, spoken about the connection of birth and Brahmana. So we are going to go look more deeply into this from the Mahabharata and also about what various acharyas have said. But before that, just to make this point, that birth in itself is having some value as well. Okay, so this is where I wish to begin with. Genetics cannot be completely disregarded, saying that, so sometimes unfortunately that happens because of a particular type of envy, and someone feels that, why give him importance just because he is born? No, it's not like that. Birth is, like our Shastras do speak about importance of birth also. Okay, I'll give some examples for that first. Like we just read from Vena's story, right? What are the Brahmins saying here? They are saying that, no, though this person is an evil guy, Vena, his dead body is there, but that Vamsha which is there, Amoga Virya, they are saying that line which is there is of great kings, and though temporarily one generation spoiled it, there is a potential in that family to produce the next good generation. And they use that same Vena's body only to get Prithu Maharaj out. That's a classic example to see how birth had its value. It wasn't that it did. Like if you go back to the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, for example, when in 4.13 Krishna says, Chatur Varne Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha, there it appears that he isn't giving importance to birth when he's talking about 4 Varnas, right? Because he says that these Varnas are according to quality and work. He says that. But again, we'll have to balance that with the 6th chapter of Gita, where what does Krishna say? Krishna says that someone who is an unsuccessful yogi, Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Prashtobi Jayate, he is born in the family of a Suchi or Srimata. So somebody is born in a very rich family or in a family, so that is also seen as something, right? So that is again genetics. It is not that it has been completely cancelled out. Okay. So how to reconcile it, we will see that. But I am making this particular point to say that genetics did have some role at least. Okay. So some people say that at least for some generations it lasts. Okay. A few generations. But if the successive generation don't value what they got due to their genetics and behave completely inappropriately, then successively it gets lost. And over a period of time, it becomes totally indistinguishable. Right? So somebody is born in a good family because of that samskar, because of the purva samskar, purva tapasya of their ancestors. Okay, that person will have some special grace with him. But if he doesn't use it, his child, it will be a little more lesser. And over a period of a few generations, it gets lost. So that happens also. Our Shastra accepts that. We are not here simply to say that, no matter what it will be. No. So genetics has its value, but not using that to one's facility will certainly destroy it as well. Okay. So, I just want to go a little bit into Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's one story about Mahaprabhu. If you see, throughout his life, he carefully followed Brahmanical culture. This is something you will see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He does all the rituals which are part of the Brahmanical culture. He also does, even in his eating, in his honoring of prasada, it is said that he only took food cooked by brahmana. That was a standard actually. And there was only one occasion when he came apparently down, but again not completely down, but that story is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when he meets this elderly brahmana in Mathura. So the story is that Mahaprabhu is in the Janmsthan of Krishna and there is dancing in Hare Kirtan, and that time there is one elderly brahmana who comes and he also starts dancing. And suddenly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and this elderly brahmana both are embracing themselves, chanting and dancing. And everyone is stunned to see the sannyasi and this, Brahmin, elderly Brahmin who are embracing each other and dancing and chanting like this. At the end of all that dancing and chanting and singing the holy name, Mahaprabhu is asking, Arya Sarala tumi Vritta Brahmana kaha hai te paile tumi ye premadana. He's asking, hey, you're an elderly Brahman, you're sincere. From where have you got this ecstatic love of Krishna? Where did you get this? He's asking that Brahmana question. So that Brahmana, Vipra kahe Srimad Madhavendra Puri, Brahmite oile Mathura Nagari. He says that Madhavendra Puri had come to Mathura Nagari. Kripa kari tenho more nilaye aila. He came to my house. More shishya kari, more hate bhiksha kaila. He came to my house, accepted me as a disciple and also had prasad cooked by me. He mentions that. This Brahman mentions. Now, and then what happens is then Mahaprabhu also says the connection. Mahaprabhu actually falls at his feet and he is surprised, and then Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he says that Hare, he is the disciple of Ishwara Puri, who is the disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So they understand the connection. And then that Brahman requests Lord Chaitanya come to his house. Okay, he comes, so Mahaprabhu goes to his house. When he goes to his house, now look at this, very interesting. Bhikshalagi Bhattacharya karile randana tabe Mahaprabhu hai se bolile vachana. So see, look at this tradition. We can at least appreciate the culture in those times. The culture was anybody could invite Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to their house. Okay, that was allowed. But they could not cook for him. You had to be a born Brahmin of those times in order to be able to cook for Lord Chaitanya. Otherwise you couldn't cook. So what you had to do is, the personal cook of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he would cook in your home and he would do. And you could give all the ingredients and you could be participating. So this was the culture. Okay. Today if you tell this to somebody, they may feel, this is like too restrictive, whatever. But that was the culture that Lord Chaitanya followed. And in that era perhaps everybody understood, appreciated, they respected and they agreed to that. Okay, so this Brahmin also, now look at this, he's a Brahmin, now you will understand why he says that. Okay, it so happens that he is a Sanodhiya Brahmin. So among all the Brahmanas, that is of the lowest, just past Brahmin bolte na, like just, so in the hierarchy of Brahmins, it was considered the lowest Brahmin. That's how Prabhupada also explains in the purport, that they would guide people who were engaged in wine and all that. They were not drinking wine, but they were the priest of those people who were engaged in drinking and so on. They were the priest of them. But because they were the priests of such people, the tradition was sannyasis would never take in their house. Okay. So though they belong to the Brahman Jati, but because of that particular thing, they weren't this thing. And this Brahman also never expected that I will cook for Lord Chaitanya. He is telling Balabhadra Bhattacharya, you please cook. Mahaprabhu says, start smiling. And Mahaprabhu at that time he tells that, hey, look, see, Madhavendra Puri has taken food cooked by your hands. Okay, so there are very beautiful verses actually there that basically talk about, Mahaprabhu is quoting Yadyadacharate Shreshtas, right? He is saying, and then he is saying that though you are a Sanodya Brahmana, but there is absolutely no question that I will not take from you like that. So I am going to take from you. So the Brahman is also a little concerned. He is feeling that, hey, maybe, people will criticize you, O Lord, if you take. But then, finally they understand that no, Mahaprabhu is very clear about it, that he is going to take. And that was the standard that of Mahaprabhu. So, we, in modern times, we can only appreciate this, how Mahaprabhu followed that particular culture, right? There is this very famous verse, Dharma stapana hetu sadhura vyavahar puri gosayini re acharana sei dharma sar. So he says the devotee's behavior establishes the true purpose of religious principles. The behavior of Madhavendra Puri Goswami is the essence of such religious principles. So he tells him that, no, look, because he has established, I am going to take food from your hand. Okay, and then he takes like that. So just to tell this. Now let's go a little bit, now let's take one last theme for the class today. So till now, we spoke about a Brahman in terms of his birth, in terms of his knowledge, in terms of his contribution to society. Okay, but what actually is the most critical aspect to decide who is a Brahmana? This again question is asked by Yaksha in his conversation with Maharaj Yudhishthira. This comes much later in the Yaksha Prashna. So this is from Mahabharata. Yaksha Vacha Rajan kulena vrittena swadhyayena shrutena va brahmanyam kena bhavati prabruhye tat sunushchitam. So Yaksha is telling Yudhishthira Maharaj, hey Yudhishthira, there are 4 qualities we generally hear which are needed to be a Brahmana. One is kula, where he is born. One is vritti. Now what is vrittena? We will see. Vrittena is translated as behavior. We will come to that. Swadhyaya. Okay, and Shrutena. So Shrutena is hearing and Swadhyaya is own study. Okay, so he is saying there are 4 things for a Brahmana: his birth, his own, what he has heard, his own study, and finally his vritti. Among this, which is the most important, he is asking. Now look at, now this will clarify, right? Now look at Yudhishthira's answer. Shrunu yaksha kulam tata na swadhyayo na cha shrutam karanam hi dvijatvecha vrittam evana samshayah. Yudhishthira says it is vritti only which decides who is a Brahman. Okay, the other 3, they have it important. So please remember, when we see such verses, it doesn't mean that he need not have any knowledge or no. No, because previously only Yudhishthira had said, Swadhyaya is what makes him divine. But what he is saying is, okay, you may do Swadhyaya, you may do your study, but if you don't have vritti, then everything goes away. Everything is destroyed. Now what is this vritti? So there are, when we translate this Sanskrit to English, it becomes a little difficult. Vritti is defined in the, so actually Yudhishthira here is not giving a one-word answer. He has 5-10 verses are there. He is explaining the answer. Okay, I will not read all of them due to lack of time. But for vritti, Yudhishthira says 2 things. One thing he says is behavior. He says, suppose if sarva vyasanino murkha. So basically he says, if a Brahmana has done Swadhyaya and all that, but he has too many bad habits, everything is finished. All that Swadhyaya is useless, because vritti is not good, because of his bad habits. And second thing of vritti is his own sadhana. That means it's not just his study or his learning that makes him a Brahmana, but his sadhana has to be there. So for sadhana he uses the word Agnihotra. So in those times the Brahmana had this Agnihotra, Sandhya, etc., right, which was their essential sadhana practice. So he says that must be there. So finally Yudhishthira concludes this section by saying that if a Brahmana doesn't do his sadhana like Agnihotra, and if he is not sense controlled, dantaha, danta means we know control of the senses, then this person cannot be accepted as a Brahmana, he says. Despite his birth, despite his Swadhyaya, despite his Shruti. Okay, so in this way, Yudhishthira actually captures that essence, saying that, hey, look, this is what a Brahmana is. And we see that also. Like in the Mahabharata, this is from Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay of, okay, so just going more into this. So there's a Sri Vaishnava commentary to this Mahabharata verse. So it says, for a Brahmana, that vritti or his behavior is so important. It says, without it, his Brahmanatva itself is useless. So it gives two examples. It says there are two animals, the dog and the elephant, both have tail. Okay, but the dog's tail cannot drive away the mosquitoes and the flies, nor can it cover the private part of the dog. If you see the dog's tail, it stands in such an awkward position. Neither it can drive the flies and mosquitoes, nor it gives its privacy. On the other hand, if you see the cow's tail, it is very effective in driving all the mosquitoes and flies, and it gives a protection to its private parts as well. So it says that a Brahmana, if he has vritti, proper behavior and sadhana, his sadhana and behavior becomes like the cow's tail. It drives away sinful reactions and it gives him protection in dangerous situations. That is the covering part. On the other hand, if he is not doing that, if he has a very weak vritti, weak behavior, weak sadhana, then his thing becomes like the dog's tail. Neither his sinful reactions are driven away, nor it is giving him protection in dangerous situations. Okay, he just remains exposed. Okay, so that's a commentary to this particular verse to talk about who the Brahmana is, right? So coming back to the Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay, Madhvacharya mentions this point. He says that Dronacharya, when he decided not to give Brahmastra to our Ashwathama, his own son, and Karna, he basically says that you must be a tapasvi Brahmana or a Jitendriya Kshatriya in order to have Brahmastra. But my dear son, you are not tapasvi Brahmana, and this Karna is not Jitendriya Kshatriya. So I can't give any of you. And it is said at that time, Karna says, I am leaving your school. I am going to Parshuram. He tries something else, but nothing eventually succeeds for him, So he doesn't succeed. Okay, so Madhvacharya actually gives some extra commentary also. He says that why these two were not that qualified and why Arjuna was specially qualified. So he says that this Ashwathama, he was not tapasvi Brahmana. And like we hear in the Bhagavatam, right? He released Brahmastra but could not withdraw it. This is not just some technical thing. It basically indicated his own lack of tapasviness in his mind. That he could release senses but he could not hold back the senses. So this releasing Brahmastra, withdrawing Brahmastra, it was not just some external weapon-like thing. You press button and you unpress it or something like that. It's not so gross. Okay, the point is he was not tapasvi. On the other hand, Arjuna is glorified so much. In fact, in Tamil, there is a Mahabharata by one Villiputtur Acharya. So it's a local Mahabharata. It has a story, very interesting story. Just like, about Arjuna, we always hear, right? One story which Prabhupada talks about is that Urvashi, how he goes there and, Urvashi he rejects. There's another story he says, this Tamil version of Mahabharata says, it says that the Pandavas, the system was 5 brothers had 1 wife. So every year, 1 man would be the wife for Draupadi. And in the next year, it would change. So this was the arrangement, it says. Okay, so it is said that in the 13th year of exile, when it was about to begin, and the Pandavas and Draupadi were going towards Virat, Draupadi was very tired. And that year, Draupadi was the wife of Yudhishthira. That year. Every year, she was wife of 1 man, right? So she was the wife of Yudhishthira in that year. So it seems, they all tell Bhima, chalo, isko uthao abhi. She cannot walk. You have to lift. So in that Mahabharata it comes. So Bhima says, see, I cannot lift her. If I touch her, currently she is the Yudhishthira's wife. I may get some feelings in my mind. But this Arjun who is there, I know his capacity. He can lift Draupadi now also, and he will not have any feeling at all. He is that kind of... so Bhima glorifies his brother Arjuna, saying that he is such a, Jitendriya Kshatriya. So the Pandavas all agree, and Arjuna is the one who lifts Draupadi and takes. Like that, the description comes. Okay, so this all basically goes to say this vritti. Vritta evana samshayaha, which Yudhishthira is saying. You have to have vritti. Otherwise, the Brahmanatva, doesn't have any meaning. Prabhupada would always talk about Chanakya as an ideal Brahmana. Just some quotes from him. So Chanakya says many things about, there are dozens of verses about Chanakya on who is Brahmana, who is not. I'll just read a couple of them. One again, which is in line with the Mahabharata verse. Chanakya says, Vipro vrikshastasya moolam cha sandhya veda shaka dharma karmani patram tasman moolam yatnato rakshaniyam chinne moole neva shakana patram. So our Chanakya says, Vipro vriksha, a brahmana is compared to a tree, he says. What an example, because he is giving so many things. Moolam cha sandhya, and his roots are his sandhya prayers, he says. That means his sadhana. His sandhya prayers, what he does. That is again connected to what Yudhishthira said, na? That vritti. Vritti had two meanings, remember. One was behavior and another was sadhana. Both are accommodated in vritti. Both should be there. So his Chanakya says like that. Then only Veda Shaka, and Veda Shaka is dharma karmani patram. The leaves and the flowers are the welfare that it does to society. Okay? And if the moola gets destroyed, everything is destroyed, Chanakya says. Okay, because that vritti is destroyed. It's in line with this. And there are a series of verses, I'm not going to read all of them, just I'll read two of them, where Chanakya says, when does a brahmana fall from being a brahmana? When does he become a Vaishya? When does he become a Shudra? When does he become a Chandal? Everything he says. Look at this one. Laukike karmani rataha pashunam paripalakaha vanijya krisha karmaya savipro vaishya uchyate. Chanakya says, if somebody is a Vipra, but is engaged in trade, commerce and all this, then he is to be called as Vaishya, he says. He can be called as Vaishya. There is no need to, designate him as a Brahmana like that, he says. And then for Chandala, he gives even stronger things. Devadravyam, Gurudravyam, Paradhara, Abhimarshanam. If somebody takes away the property of the deity or the Guru or another man's wife, then such a person, Vipras Chandala Uchyate. He says, such a person is not a Brahmana, he is to be called as a Chandala. Okay, so I'm just giving all these examples to say this whole concept that the Brahmana had to have vritti was always accepted in a Shastra. It was always accepted. Now I'll just end with one last point. The point which I want to say is that, our scriptures, though it glorifies a Brahmana's position, his contribution, but it is not that only if somebody is a Brahmana he is successful. Not at all. To achieve the highest goal in life, anybody can achieve that. If you see in the 11th canto, 12th chapter, verse number 3 to 6, this is spoken by Lord Krishna to Uddhava. He is listing so many people. Due to paucity of time, I am not reading that entire verse, but he is listing so many people. Dharmavyada, Sugriv, many people he is listing. There are some 5 verses, if you read the verse, 11th canto, 12th chapter, 3 to 6. And he is saying all these devotees of mine, they were born in lower families, he says, like Vaishya, Shudras, women. All of them achieved my supreme abode. He writes like that. Tuladhar, Dharmavyad. This Dharmavyad is the Dharmavyad of the Mahabharata, who was the butcher. Krishna is saying all these people achieved my abode, he says. Okay, so it is very clear in the Shastra that it is not that, see, this Brahman is related to the psychology of the body and the mind. If you had that, you were it. If not, it didn't mean anything. It is not a discriminatory system meant to, say that only this guy is smart and everyone else is a fool. Not at all. Not at all. Anybody can achieve the highest perfection of life. Absolutely no problem in it. And our scriptures are filled with examples of that. Filled with examples of that. I'm just ending with this, recently on television there was a debate between one Vaishnava head cup and one political party in Tamil Nadu. So the debate was that political party of Tamil Nadu spokesperson was saying, Hare, all this Ramayana and all is full of favoring Brahmanas only. So this Vaishnava was representing the Ramayana very nicely, he said. He said, what are you talking? You have not read the Ramayana. He is saying in the Ramayana, Ram himself is a Kshatriya. Most of Ram's friends like Guha, Shabari, all the monkeys, no one is Brahman. And in fact, the only one biggest Brahman is the Ravan, whom Ram killed. What are you talking all this nonsense? You have simply a bias towards, that envy towards something. But the Ramayana itself is not at all having any of this. And he says, Valmiki, the writer, was also not part of a Brahmin family. None of this, the writer is not, the main hero is not, his friends are not, nobody is. Only the villain is Brahmin, he is killed also. Okay, and you are saying that, Brahmin. So we also need to understand that Sanatana Dharma gave opportunity to everyone to progress and achieve the highest thing. Just that in terms of contribution, one needed a particular type of psychophysical nature. If you had that, you were called a Brahman. Otherwise it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean the end of the world. It didn't mean anything. You can go back to the spiritual world, as all these so many examples are there in the Shastra. Okay, we just end summarizing briefly. So this whole verse is Hiranyakashipu understanding the pulse of Sanatana Dharma. He says, let's destroy Brahmanical culture. Then this Vishnu will die. That's his hypothesis. I started with the Mahabharata where the Brahmanas divinity is defined based on his Swadhyaya initially. Then I said that how the Brahman had this knowledge which he would give in a Nishkama Bhavana without expecting anything, not that he had a project to fulfill like Drona. That's not the ideal example of a Brahmana. He gives only with the intention of what is good for this person. If it was not good, he may not even say something. If it is good, he will give him. So with that consideration when a person gives, that is the Brahmanical way of giving knowledge. Okay. Then we saw several examples how even Brahmanas were connected to society. Like in the Bhagavatam, we saw the Brahmanas during the time of this Vena. 3 times they intervene in the story just to restore the governance. They were not thinking that we have nothing to do with the government or anything. Then we said that how the birth which is there has some meaning. Like we see in the story of this Prithu, it comes, right? That birth has some value. Like Krishna also says, Shuchinam Srimatam. But it didn't mean everything. Okay? And we saw how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, how he followed this culture very carefully. And what an exception he made. Only with one Salotya Brahman, one meal. That's it. Okay? Then we went to the Mahabharata where Yaksha is asking, who is a Brahmana? 4 things he says. Is it Swadhyaya? Is it Shruti? Is it Janma? Or is it Vritti? And Yudhishthira says, Vritta evana samshayaha. And Vritti we saw has 2 meanings in the text. One is behavior and the other is his own sadhana, without which he ceases to remain. We saw examples again from the Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya of Ashwathama or all these people, how they were, that's why they are considered Brahma Bandhu. They lost that tapasvi nature. Their behavior wasn't good. Okay. And finally we saw that, the Vedas doesn't make overhype anything, including Brahmana, saying that only he is the great person, everybody else is not needed. Nothing like that. Time and again we see our scripture saying that anybody can achieve the highest destination of life. Hare, what is being Brahman? You can go back to the spiritual world. You can achieve liberation. What more you want under any existence. Okay, so Shastras are very, very broad-minded and magnanimous. But at the same time, they understand the psychology of a person and assign a varna to such and such person. Okay, so this is what we saw today. And I think, so as Prabhupada says, basically, the Brahmanical culture needs to be protected. It needs to be encouraged. It needs to be fanned up. Only then the Sanatana Dharma can actually exist. Otherwise, it is like Hiranyakashipu or that Francis's, plan, basically to destroy the entire Sanatana Dharma. Okay, yeah, thank you. I've exceeded time, sorry. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitaya Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare Bol.
Krishna,
We'll take it personally maybe. Time is up. Everybody wants to take prasad.
News and all the things. What's going on in the current scenario, like corruption and all every profession, scams, frauds and all the things, dishonesty, cheating, exam. So who's the wrong? Faithless parents. Many people are faithless. Parents. So who's the problem? Parents or the system or the leadership or the student? And even if you go solution, they are not accepting. What is the problem?
I mean, if you are talking about the scams and all that, see, Prabhuji, see, when majority of the population are adharmic, just some people good will not help. Na? Like we always say, even if you have a very good ruler, what can that single ruler do?